Hello there. I hope I find you well. Right, this is going to be a complicated one. To get a notepad, I'm going to try and work through an image to completion. So, like one of the Panotraits, and I'm going to do it with these two. This is the origin drawing that I've taken the detail of that. I've already done it purely for time purposes. I'm going to do another print from what's the remainder, the residual print that is left on here, which hasn't got an enormous amount of detail on it. While that dries, I'm going to use these Faber-Castell Pitt Artist brush pens, which are different shades of, I hate using this expression after that, I've never even watched the film, but different shades of grey. I'll shade in some of it because that's going to become obviously the continuity of the image when I do this with this biplate technique. Is the broken line between the two images becomes the continuity. So something that I've been playing with a little bit, if you've seen one or two of the previous videos, is sort of accentuating that effect before I actually stick them together and modelling more into the pulled away print image, like the first print that you put up, not because obviously I can still use this as a print, and in one of the previous ones I showed how I painted again the reprinted using the embossing technique that I'll put the link in the notes for the Stiper Stones one, because it shows you how I transfer that image onto the plate. And I know it's getting a bit complicated now because I have a habit of doing this. I'll start mixing and matching a lot of the things that well, I don't know whether I'll start, I just do that anyway, of the techniques that I've used. So I mean, a bit of watching what I've done in the past probably helps. It is a bit serial sort of thing in that regard. It's not, my videos aren't really, it helps if you've seen other, but if you haven't got time, I understand that too. You can't, I'm not asking everybody to watch, I don't even watch it all myself. Okay, so with that in mind about the time, what I'm going to do is now is do a print from this. I've already set these two against each other. So what I mean by that is they're registered on exactly the same sheet of paper. And the way I did that is through a light box. I put that image over the top of that, fitted it, and you can see here where the line is. I drew out that line, switched the light box on, and used that line to follow that round on another piece of paper, put over the top of it. I then cut them while they're both stuck together, so they're both registered to each other, and that's the register, not within the plate, but how I use the paper afterwards. They're cut to the same size. It's quite important now. I might do a little mini video of me showing you how I do that, but it's pretty simple. That's all you've got to do. Instead of using a plate within the register, if you've got a light box and access to one, you can just use the edge of the plate itself as the register, because it's not going to change that much, from especially the smaller ones, from one print to the next. It will do if it's like 10 or 15 prints on. You might be in a bit of trouble there, but obviously that's not been used since I did that to it, because the residual image is still left on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get the paint onto that. I'm going to use System 3 warm grey, because these are all variations on grey, and it will keep the continuity when I work them over into that image. I will incidentally rub away, in all likelihood, virtually all of these pencil drawn lines afterwards, so it's just so it's got a bit more of an organic and less linear quality to it. But I might change my mind, it might work work better with them. You never know until you got rid of it, but you can always switch the light box on again and re-establish that line drawing. I'll be using Yoo-hoo to stick them together with when I cut them into strips, and the rest of it's pretty standard stuff. Yeah. Okay, so let's do this first. So I'm gonna, and this, I'm using this as a binder layer as well for what's left as the residual bits of paint. But it will also obviously print where it's pulled away the print there, which is exactly what I'm after. So again, not too much, because obviously I would like to do this without having to use the hairdryer once, and this is the only bit I will need to use the hairdryer on, so it would be great if I could do that, wouldn't it? Now, this is obviously why I've mapped this in with the where I would need to drop the print, because obviously I've registered this page, this sheet of paper. There we go. Right, that can now sit and dry for a little while, and put the top back on that. And I'm going to use these, so they're varying gradations of grey. Some of them they're calling cold greys, some of them they call, I think 4 of them are warm greys, 2 of them are what they call cold greys. Yeah, so obviously what I'm hoping is that this will interact in quite an interesting way with the grey that I just painted on as the binder and how should I put it, the blocking in factor, which is what it will be, where this is all lifted away. It's all going to be grey on that plate, but a very flat grey, so hopefully the contrast will show up between these different greys that are quite flat. Obviously you can see I'm going off of where I've marked out where the print's going to, because that might come in a bit handy doing that later. Might not do. Find out. I'll change that, that's a bit dark now. That one. Do that. Yeah, this is something that I'm working on with a slot. I'm on a full-scale version of the portrait. It has to be said, a lot of what I do with these images, where I'm working them out with this Panotrait or Panoscape technique that I use, a lot of it is very, I use a light box quite a lot. I don't to work out my original line drawing. That's quite a big deal to me that I don't do that. But it's got to be worked out by hand. But once I've done it, then I'll replicate many times over. And yeah, see how I can use them in context to one another. Don't want to go too dark now, so I'm just going to use that bit down here. There's a little bit of it going off. chin than there is obviously around the orbit of the eye on this side, so I'm going to go into that one. That's a bit dark. There. Shade that in a little under there. Maybe a bit over there. Right, okay. So, that went a lot quicker than expected, so that's fantastic. So I'm going to have a swig of my coffee. Okay, we're not even quarter of an hour in. So, I'm going to rub. Now normally what I would do is I wouldn't have, if I was doing this and I wasn't doing it on camera, I wouldn't have this image on this side of the sheet of paper. I would work this through from the other side. Let me show you what I mean. So this is the other one that I'm doing that's still work in progress. And I have got the line drawing of the rest of the portrait that's not been printed onto the image, but the grid that I'm using in order to achieve the squares I put on that side. The reason being is that I'm pretty aware that I will be rubbing out my establishing line drawing, same as I'm doing here. Now I haven't done this a lot, but I expect to encounter a lot of problems with different viscosities of paint and how they've stuck to the page at the broken edges, and that's why I'm avoiding. It's another one of these light box things. If you've got a light box, you can do it all from the other side. And if it means that you're not going to damage, or you can reduce the chances of damaging what you've already established, then that can't be a bad thing. Yeah, just worked a bit of the pencil back into it. I mean, it's not a big deal because the pencil's grey itself, so you can sort of see residual pencil lines. Ah, you see, it's done it there. Now, that's what I mean. That's what I was expecting. It's not a big deal. I'm quite glad it's done it at that point because I can show you how to repair this stuff now. Okay, it's come up there. See? Well, it's not quite. What you do with, as you can see, be very careful. Scalpel. Bit of white medium body acrylic. Right. A brush a bit like that. Don't know what size that is because obviously you can see all the paint's come off of it. It's an old brush. But switch back to my dominant hand. Right, so you just gently, not too much paint here obviously. And you're using it as really what acrylic paint really is, which is PVA glue. And then push it back into place. There we go. That's that. That's going to happen. That will happen. It happened there as well. I don't know whether you can see the faint line there. With this if you're going to go for those organic lines, that I think there's other ways of doing it. You don't have to have the organic lines. You could use sheets of paper as blocking, and when you want to, if you want a more clinical edge to your broken line, that I like at the moment. I like the organic broken edge to it, so it's something that I'll be maintaining. But this is part of the risk. But it's a pretty simple repair, and I'm quite glad it's happened there, like I said, because I can show you now how I fixed that. So that's now ready to go like that. I'm going to move these two out of the way because I'm done with that. Okay, I think this is going to need a little bit of I'm going to switch the mic off for a minute and blast that with a hairdryer, I'm afraid. Okay, back with sound again. Yeah, so I'm going to pull the plate now. I think it's good to go. Yeah, it seems to be. It's a brand new plate there, so tempt fate with these things. I was just about to say hopefully it'll pull away cleanly, but it hasn't entirely pulled away cleanly. But that's okay. See a bit. There we go. That may need attention later. I think it's going to be alright. It just got caught a bit on the plate there. I quite like that bit. Quite happy to leave that. That might play very idiosyncratically with the greys I've established in that bit once I start, because obviously that fits enough. Another thing, if I wasn't doing this on camera, I'm not going to do this now, but I would, if I was off camera and I had a bit of time, which I'm presuming if you use this approach you will have more than I've got here, and you've got a light box, again I'd switch the light box on at this point and see if I can pick up. You can't always, it depends how thick this layer of paint is, but see how well the image is, how they're correlating on the page. But I'm absolutely, because I literally just cut the paper to exactly the same size, so I know they're perfectly registered on each other. The paper was that sheet that's from and that sheet that's from. They were bigger sheets. I put them over the top of each other, so they were, I knew where the boundary was, where I'd drawn it out. That's why it's important to get that from that one on the other side, bring it forward to that side, and then bring it with the light box onto this side. And I know where I could set the register from knowing where I was going to put the gel plate on this one. So we're ready to go now. I can show you how I go about cutting them up and sticking them together. I think I might just, bear with me a minute, it's just a little bit damp on the edges there. I don't want it to do that, so sorry about this. Right, so I'll give that a little bit on its own to dry. So I want them obviously to go across that, so they need to be vertically inclined stripes. So it's 16.5 centimetres across, and then what I do is, so that's 2 centimetres, so I will mark that 2 and put a dot behind it, because obviously I'm going to do 0.5s as well. And then I'm going to do 1 centimetre there. Put a dot behind that, and it'll be 1.5. And then I might do another 2 centimetres there. And then 2.5. One, and another 1.5, 2.5, and then I'm just going to go with 1 there, because I can see where it helps to know where the boundary of the print is as well on this side. even though I can see that's probably confusing you a bit from, I'll rub it out down the bottom here because it's completely unnecessary, and then you can at least get an idea. So there we go, so that's 2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 1, 1.5, 2.5, and another 1 there. So there we go, and I'll line them up. So this is very like the, it's pretty much the same routine that I've followed for a piece that I called Pertinent Idea. But if you're watching this on YouTube and you've been to my channel on YouTube, which I hope you have, right now at this moment it's the banner image at the top of it. That's Pertinent Idea. I'm not going to go into why I called it that, that's a digression too far. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I'm going to cut that one up. I'm going to do the same to this one, make sure I've got them going on the same axis, so I know that. And I'm going, I mean, you don't have to do this, but I tend to jumble up. In fact, I always jumble up the numbers. So I'll go with 1, then I'll go with 1.5. And then I think I'll do 2, and then we'll do another 1.5 there, then a 1, then 2.5, then 2, and a 1.5. 1.5, and another, I'm going to go with 2 there, so they're quite thick over this side, and then 1 there. And obviously relay that at the bottom. So that's 1, 1.5, 2, 1.5, 1, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 2, and 1. And once again, so they just need cutting now. Then I'm going to stick them onto a piece of medium density fibreboard, which is that stuff. Doesn't have to be that, but I tend to find, I mean, it adds to the weight of things, but I tend to find it's nice and smooth, and the images from the paper bind really nicely to the smooth surface, and it's rigid. It's got a lot of, well, it's like a piece of wood basically. So it's a really rigid surface to yeah, finally compose the images together. So I'm going to put that over there for the moment. That's my marker line that I'll start off on. And now I'm going to cut these little blighters to size. So it's a scalpel knife for this. Bring the light in a bit. And let's just have a look at the time. Okay, it's going to go into the second part in a minute. So I'll just say a few thank yous. It's been another good week with social media and people tuning in, and I really appreciate that. I'm quite shocked how many people watch what I do. But it's very encouraging, so it's much appreciated. Thank you very much for that. As soon as I can get up to 1,000 subscribers, I can start using the channel in a more business-like manner, shall we say, which will hopefully, well, I'm pretty sure it'll have an effect on, like, if I can spend a little more time on editing or some time on editing, that would be fantastic, instead of having to generate income from outside resources to fund this stuff. It would be great if it started generating a bit of its own income. Sometimes, I mean, I don't with things like this, but sometimes if it's a bigger image and it's, you know, it's more complicated and got more moving parts, then I will label them. Like I generally tend to go for the images. I give a sort of an alphabetized designation. Like this would be A, and this one would be B, and then each of the strips I give a numeric designation. So just so you know where things fall. With this, these are quite simple. He says, I'm asking for trouble now. It's often quite good, and it definitely avoids a bit of trouble if